1, 2, 3.
And I'll have to concentrate.
No, you don't have to make it right.
No, but I mean, I was thinking of a name. There was old Mr. Pace.
Was that Ransom Pace?
No.
Oh, this was the one that Bud Pace that had all the children?
No.
No?
This is the Pace that lives out here on the old highway going to Hendersonville. Not 176, but when you go up 176, you cross the railroad track and winding up where the old bridge used
Macedonia, the old Macedonia.
No, before you get to Macedonia Road. Mm-hmm. It's the old highway that went to Saluda when I came up here in 1919.
Oh, I didn't realize it.
And it had a massive bridge over it.
Oh.
And you'd go across that bridge to get to Hendersonville.
That crossed the Green River.
Yeah. And the Pace, there was a Pace that had Wade Pace's sister graduated in Saluda. Lolly.
There was a Laura. Was there a Laura?
Lola.
Lola.
Yeah, I think that. She became very high in the Army as a registered nurse.
Oh, now, listen, I'm going to get me on this because there's no sense in spending the tape on me.
There's Wade and Lottie, or whatever her name is, and then...
I think it's Aura Pace. I think they told me her name was Aura Pace.
Aura Pace?
The one that had that was the nurse was Aura Pace.
Isn't that funny? Because her cousins are all out there now, and they live in the old house up on the hill, on the left-hand side of the road.
Edith Pace told me about that and said that she would probably be here for that Pace reunion, and that she thought that Hank, she'd like to see Hank after all these years.
And she's one of the ones that have made good. And there are others in the town that I do not remember all the names of them. But they have gone ahead and made big names for themselves. Mm-hmm. There was a family of Stevensons, and one of the brothers was a big baseballer and had gone to Atlanta and New York and different places and been a quite a well-known baseball boy.
Right. And there's the one that...
and Raymond Stevenson is the older brother.
Now, who's Raymond Stevenson?
Raymond Stevenson is dead, but Kathleen Stevenson was Kathleen Guerin. Mm-hmm. Mr. Guerin was a photographer, which was her uncle.
Oh, yeah, she's given us a lot of these pictures.
Yeah, that's right. She's the one. Well, it's her brother-in-law that was one. It was a ball player. And it's different ones like that you know and
they're real people.
And have gone ahead and made a name for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they're from Little Saluda and the little school here. They're teachers and different things like that. But I don't remember all the names.
No, I'm so bad about names. Let's see.
Four.
64.
Now, let's see what I've got in 64. Now, there's a 62.
I would remember these things because we started coming in the 40s, in the late 40s.
Well, then you'll remember.
I remember a lot of these. I don't remember this Saluda Mountaineer at all.
You don't?
But then we were only coming for a week or two.
So, oh, well, then
we didn't know anything much. We'd come and bring friends from home. We didn't get
one of the cute things, amusing thing, when I went to work at Saluda, at Tryon Hospital, you can take this down.
I'm taking it.
Is it?
Yeah, I've got it going.
I went into the ward to nurse an old gentleman that lived out in the country. And I said, "Good morning. I'm your nurse. I'm going to give you your bath." And he said, "I reckon I can take my bath." I said, "No, you must let me give it to you." So I started bathing, and there were 3 other young men in the ward. And one of them said, "How is Saluda this morning, Mrs. Sterneau?" I said, "Fine," and went on talking. And all of a sudden, the old gentleman said, "I reckon you're from Saluda?" I said, "Yes, I am." "You one of the Pace girls?" I said, no, I'm not one of the girls like those. Are you Johnson? I said, no, I'm not. The young men in back of me were all giggling and trying to be very quiet. And I turned around and frowned at them. So they quieted down, and the man said, well, I reckon you're Thompson. I said, no, I'm not. Well, you must be a Metcalf. Johnson, Pace, none of those? I said, no. So I went on bathing him, and I said, did you know the Miss Heriots that had Melrose Inn in Saluda? Yeah, nice ladies. I said, well, I'm their niece. I'm Lillian Heriot. Well, why didn't you say so before? I'd have known you then.
Saluda is so wonderful. It is just so great.
And so after that, he seemed to accept me. And I was able to go in and bathe him and take care of him every morning. But that morning he held on to his sheets and and his nightgown, and I had a bad time getting him undressed to bathe him.
3 minutes and we can just throw away the part that doesn't.
A colored woman came in, and I was out on the hall, and they came in from the emergency room and asked me please to come to see a patient of Dr. Preston's that was in the emergency room. He asked me to come. So I went in, and Dr. Preston was sitting at the emergency room desk, and he said, sweetie, go in there and talk to her. We can't get her undressed.
Oh, gosh.
I said, very well. So I went in, and it was one of the old-timers from Saluda, a tall, slender colored woman who was brought in. She'd been quite sick. I said, well, good morning. You're not feeling so well. No, little Miss Lillian, I ain't well at all. I'm bad. I said, now.
Can't remember her name. I know what you mean. Well, don't worry about it. You can think about it later. I can always write it down later, yeah.
I said, now, you've got to be examined by the doctor. So I will have to help you undress. Oh, Lordy, no, Miss Lillian. No, I'm all right, holding on to her blouse. So eventually I got the blouse off. Then I started. I believe she had one skirt and 4 petticoats.
Oh, my goodness.
And a pair of panties, and over that she had bloomers, stockings, and socks on. But eventually I got down to the last layer with something like a chemise. She wouldn't let me take it off, so I went out and told Dr. Preston that I had gotten down to the very last layer and I couldn't get it off her. He said, all right, I'll come in. So I started out of the room, and she says, oh, Lordy, Miss Lillian, don't leave me. She was about almost 6 feet, and she had a rooming house for colored people that worked in the summer.
Oh, I'm glad to know about that. Tell me about it. I mean, I'd like to get that on here.
She had I think it was about a 2-story house.
And where was it?
And it was,
I want to get
Gamel Jeter will be able to tell you exactly where it was.
Gamel Jeter?
Gamel Jeter.
Oh, Gamel, yes.
Yeah.
Gamel, yes, sure, I know Gamel. I didn't know the Jeter part of it.
And I'd like to say here that she was very particular about who she took in her house to room.
That's right. Yes.
My aunt saw her one morning and said, I want to speak to you. So-and-so's coming up and bringing their maid. You know, she was with them last year. And she said, yes, ma'am, but I don't have a room for her.
Huh?
Aunt Lillian said, why, what's the trouble? She was here last year. Yes, Miss Lillian, I'm sorry, but I have no room for her. And nothing Aunt Lillian said would get the story out of her. So when the girl came up, they had to get her a room for a while, and then the people had rooms on their help plant their property, and she stayed there. But this woman would not take her.
Take anybody that she didn't approve of.
She was very
was
particular.
she the only colored rooming house there then?
I don't know. I really don't
You know,
I think there was another one, but I couldn't be sure of that.
Well, we can find out
Yeah,
the name
but
from,
Gang
but I
will
want to
read it,
put
will
that
tell
in. Yeah,
Isn't
Gang
that
Gang
funny?
was such a wonderful person.
Oh, he's a dream. He's marvelous.
I see him pretty often up with Virginia Green.
Yes.
And the other day when they went over to the funeral, Gangle was up there. I was looking for some dogs that the gal that's rooming behind me in the little trailer that was on the property. Her dogs had disappeared, and I couldn't find them. And I heard Gangle over there with a lawnmower, and he, I think, just stayed around all afternoon so that.
Where was Hal buried?
In Columbia.
Columbia. I thought that, but I couldn't.
Right. I guess I can hear. No, we might as well go on. One thing, tell me about this Saluda Civic League now. What was the difference between it and the Women's Club, or do you have any idea?
I have no idea, except it was for the promotion of improving Saluda and its general, not aspects, its general, it's to start and build up Saluda.
I've got a thing about. Wait a minute, let me show you.
But I don't remember too much about the Civic
These
League.
are some of the people that were in it, but this was in the 20s. And you see here is 1928. This is a deposit.
And that's Mrs. Bushnell, who has owned the old home that that's.
And here for Mrs. Campbell, president of the Civic League, Saluda, North Carolina. And this is April 15th to Miss Annie Neighbors for park outside her gate. Total for hauling rack, $3. And then all sorts
Miss Annie Neighbors.
That was J.A. Neighbors'
aunt.
Right.
And she had a place down beyond the Episcopal Church on the same property.
Oh, I remember when that still belonged to the neighbors.
That house?
Yes.
Yeah, well,
I don't remember the house, but I remember how they had to clear off. I think either the house burned or something. Now here's on Mrs.
And this Blair.
And this is on Mrs. Sally's note paper, Mrs. E. McQueen Sally, Saluda, North Carolina. Dear Mrs. Bushnell.
Yeah, now Mrs. Bushnell and her husband, he was called Dr. Bushnell. And they had a home,
Where was he a doctor, medical doctor?
I forgot that part of it. I've forgotten.
Was she summer people or?
No, they lived here all around, and they traveled a lot. But anyhow, they lived beyond the Woods house. Now, do you know the Woods house?
I'm not sure. What is it?
Next to Gertrude Kirk's place.
Yes, right.
There. Then beyond that corner, that following corner where the big two-story house is now, is for sale. Well, that was Dr. and Mrs. Bushnell's place.
Oh, the one that's for sale.
Huh?
The one that is for sale now. Well, that's nice to know that was the Bushnell's house.
Yeah, that was the Bushnell
place.
Well,
this is to Roman Brock. Roman Brock has worked 16 hours at the park and flower beds at 25 cents an hour. $4. $4 for 16 hours of work. How about that?
Good grief. Now, I think it was like,
Well, they did start the playground and park. I know that because this is from the Harmon Foundation through the courtesy of the Playground and Recreation Association.
See, that's it, for the building and things in Saluda. Yeah, Miss Rosa Parks, God love them.
And let's see what this is. This is Mrs. Bushnell. Please pay Mr. Sherman $1.40. $1.40 for work done in the flower beds. Mrs. Camel ordered this work done. Sincerely, is it Vernon, somebody, K. Sally.
Mrs. Sally was Vernon Kennedy.
Vernon Kennedy, that's right.
Yeah. Harmon Field and Saluda, to the best use of Harmon Field and Saluda.
And evidently this is somebody who is selling magazines, and they got 25 cents proceeds and 10 cents proceeds. These are, and here's the statement from the Carolina State Bank. These are all old things that Gertrude Kirk found in the same time that she found the library book. And here's, Where is that? Ooh. Oh, it's right here.
Here, take this, dear. So
All right, I'm going to put them right
wait a
there.
minute, I get the two checks.
Okay, well.
The old library. Oh, my Lord. Isn't this something?
Cater kept going through and seeing people that he knew in there, but I thought it was a
Hotel
really
Charles.
And now here are the newspapers that the Woman's Book Club put out for a lot of years. Were you a member of that? The Saluda?
Well, I remember there was something that they...
This is the Saluda Progress that was put out in the 20s, late 20s.
God.
Oh, and here are the closing exercises at the Saluda Seminary. And I'm not sure what year. Maybe you would know what year it was. It doesn't
Well, I
say.
had one, I think the year I graduated, or the year before,
Or is this
25.
yours? Maybe that is yours. No, this is one that Gertrude had. That's right.
Yeah, this is one that Gertrude.
And I didn't write down. I want to write.
Oh, this is before me. Lena Elizabeth Heriot Sterneau, and Grandma Gray's.
You said it was in the late 20s or early 30s that the schools took over the
Yes, because we came up in 1919, and I went to the seminary, I think, for 2 years. So it must have been 21 or 22.
It was 21 or 22 that you were there.
I graduated in 25, and I graduated as a student from the Saluda High School, not the seminary.
So, so that it was it the Saluda High School when you came, or was it still the old seminary?
It was the seminary when I came.
When you came,
in
that's
1919.
Right.
Well, I'll have to get mine from 1925 then. You might, and that I think has a list of some of the girls and boys that
What
went
I
there.
hope we can do with this is to make a real archives of it. If whoever wants them back, we'll
Well, I don't, because
Xerox
I'm
things, and if you
so
don't
much.
want them back.
This is the old couple, God, and president is Aunt Lillian of the Saluda Book Club. Huh? I forgot that. I knew she was because she had an awful lot to do with it. I have maps over there that I don't know what to do. It's 1929.
Oh, that would be great.
But it's not around here.
Oh.
You see?
Don't hurt yourself. No, you can't hurt this. Don't worry about that. It's still going strong.
That was because...
That has all the different, oh yes, this is Blue Ridge Forest. Oh, this was when they were going to, now where is Blue Ridge, Hogback Mountain section. Where is Hogback Mountain exactly?
Down towards Saluda. I mean down towards Triumph.
Towards Triumph. Is it still in,
Yes, they have a settlement up there. But I mean, you know,
it's, you turn off from Melrose
Drive, down beyond the Catholic Church.
All right, and then the road comes back and comes into by Packlet Falls.
Yes, I think so. It might be, because I haven't been through it so long that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But those are things that I don't know what to do with, so I'm going to take them to try on.
Well,
now if Cato wants them, he can have them. I mean, that doesn't make any difference.
I think he may want in the end to give them to try them, but in the meantime, especially during this centennial. Oopsie!
I swear I'm willing.
No, I'm just afraid you're going to break your neck. That's it.
Let me see now if I have anything. These, I think, are all Charleston things, but I'll just look to be sure.
Oh, I love having this because I have no idea which mountains are what around here, and this tells me.
Well, my darling, I'll be glad to let you have it.
Oh, that is wonderful because
now
really
this is in '64. This is when Aunt Lillian died. I don't think there's anything in here that was me.
Let me put this in with your Melrose Inn thing. And what we'll do is see what you want back and what wants to be kept for a museum or whatever, because
most of the things I give, I feel should go for the museum because I don't.
Yes.
Now there's nothing in there. That's just there. Now this is Charleston. This is Oh no, that's the church in New York. That's the church in Charleston. This is the. I wonder if this will. Well, now here's an article about Saluda in 1928 to 53. This is, and there's Mr. Ballinger. This is the 25th anniversary from the Daily Bulletin, and that brings some. Now let me see who. Now that's the Charleston Dock Theater. Everybody knows that's Saluda, North Carolina. No, this is all mostly Charleston. And of course you have this. I know.
Yes, I have the newer one. Don't step.
No,
don't break your neck. I'm not worried about that.
I was looking to see that.
Oh, this is great.
No, you see, I'm trying to dispose of things because I'm the last of the Heriot of my line, and there's
You know, I'm beginning to feel that way. Yesterday, my daughter and her husband took an old mirror that Mother had gotten years ago with them. And they said, oh, but the rest of them are liable to be unhappy. And I said, I want to get rid of things.
Yeah.
Things don't really mean anything. It's the people that mean things.
And the things, to me, the thing, now, that is the only thing that I have of my father's. And he came into Melrose Inn one afternoon. He came up to Saluda when he was a young man, used to ride horseback riding. He and his cousin, Lockwood Clancy.
Oh, from down in Tryon, did they ride in Tryon or did they ride here?
No, they rode around here. My great aunt got them horses and they rode around here. And one afternoon, Lockwood and Papa came in and said, and daughter, have you any Octagon soap wrappers? And Aunt Daughter looked at him and said, well, yes, I think they're going in my desk. So she went on about her business, and then she started thinking about it. So she said, well, I better go. She said, Stuart, what do you and Lockwood want
with Octagon
soap wraps for? I said, well, we want to do something with it. So they went on. Well, the next afternoon, she didn't think anything more about it, and the next afternoon, the little maid came and said, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Lockwood is outside. And Aunt Daughter said, yes, they've been out hunting or something. Said, well, they've got something, Miss Emma, they want to shoot. So she went out and said, Aunt Daughter, look what we've got. They had that desk. Aunt Daughter said, Stewart, Lockwood, where did you get it? Oh, we didn't steal it. We didn't steal it. A lady wanted a lot of Octagon soap wrappers, and she wanted to get rid of that. So we took that for the Octagon soap wrappers she wanted.
Oh, great. Well, isn't it a darling?
Isn't it?
Oh, I love it.
I had it appraised, and the man said, Mrs. Sterneau, this is solid wood, everything in it.
Oh, it is. It's so nice and shallow. I mean, you can get it right against the
right
wall.
Against the
Oh,
wall.
that's great.
So that's the only thing. Now, I have pieces. Now, these things, this here and the whatnot and this and all, came from Charleston. Those are the things that came from Charleston. But, from the family. But that's the only thing I have of my father's. And I said, I'm going to hold on to it at that. Now, things have marked. I've marked things to go to young people.
Yeah.
That when I go, that I want to live with until I go.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to begin doing that. My great aunts did that, and everything when they died, Mother went to Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And everything was marked on the back. They asked us to come, several years before they died. They were in their 80s, and they were frail. And they said, now please, if there's anything you want, put your name on it, because it'll give us a great deal of pleasure to know who's going to have what.
Yeah,
and we can think about it and know that.
Yeah.
And we may live a long time, but if we don't, at least
I want to live to be 100.
Right.
I want to live
I don't.
I want to live to 2,000, and I'll be 90-something then.
Well, you know, Hank's father died at 103 2 years ago.
103?
103.
I didn't know that.
He stayed in practice in Savannah till he was 98.
Did you?
Until Hank's mother died. She was a lot younger. You may have known her.
I expect, coming up,
when she came up here.
Yeah, I know. because that, Dr. Little, who underwent a serious operation, Dr. Jervis Hospital in Greenville, is getting old.
Now, Dr. Little was from
He was the mayor of Saluda.
And he was also the pharmacist, wasn't he?
Yes, he was a pharmacist. Yeah.
Rather than
he opened the drugstore.
He wasn't a medical doctor, though, was he?
No. He was a pharmacist. And
Well, they've told me about this dance place that was back of Little's drugstore.
Yeah.
Now, did the dance hall, that didn't belong to him, did it? It was just the...
No, it was just a place that we could go and dance and have cool drinks and, just back there like that.
And tell me about this. There was an angel that Edith Pace told me about. There was a crystal spring of some sort in there. She said there was this nice spring.
Crystal Springs
No,
Inn?
it wasn't the Crystal Springs Inn. This was in back of Little's drugstore. She said, and two people have told me that there was a spring.
Yeah, there was a spring there, yes.
But then Edith Pace said something about their putting a statue of an angel there. A pretty statue of an angel back there by the crystal, by the spring.
By the spring.
And she said that you could, that where you danced, you could look down on the people that were eating ice cream and things down below. And she's told me about that. But tell me about now the Melrose Inn, the plumbing for the Melrose Inn was from Crystal Springs, wasn't it? Or was it the Charles Hotel?
Melrose Inn was built before Crystal Springs.
Oh. Well, now was there plumbing in Melrose?
Huh?
Was there plumbing? Pipes.
Yeah, it had all kind of...
Where did the water come from? Because the city water supply didn't
water supply was up there. Mm-hmm. But we had wells. Melrose Inn had a dug well and a well.
Mm-hmm.
A dug well and then a well that we dug to bring the water up to the house. A pump is what I'm trying to say.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's how.
Well, now, Mr. Estes, according to some of the articles and things that Mr. Estes from Augusta, Charles Estes, came in, and he was the one that developed the Crystal Spring. And then he used that for, was there a Crystal Springs
Inn?
Inn.
Yeah.
Yes,
right,
and that was his.
Melrose Inn, where the Ashleys lived.
Yeah.
That was Crystal Springs Inn.
And Mr. Estes had that, I guess. But the water, it said then, was used by Melrose Inn. When they piped it then from there up to Melrose Inn. They might have,
because I don't remember that part of it, you see. See,
that was before you came.
Well, I didn't come up until 1990. Well, I came up in 1912, I think. 1913. Wait a minute. I came up in 1912, 1913. To spend a summer, my grandmother brought me up. But when I got from Charleston. But when I got up here, apparently, coming from New York to Charleston and then up this far, it affected my breathing and little heart troubles. So they didn't let me stay very long. They took me back to Charleston. And I had been sick. I had very bad eyes. And I was very thin, and I hadn't been eating, just a little girl, 6 years old. Then, I came to live with my aunts when I was 6 years old. And then in 1919, I came up, and I was all right. I was older, and I had been taken care of and been eating better, and all. And I was strong, and I never had any more trouble. But,
when did your family take over Melrose Inn? Did they?
And Dora and Aunt Aggie were getting older, and Aunt Lillian and Aunt Addie helped them. See, Aunt Dora and Aunt Aggie were the ones that came up from Charleston and built Melrose Inn in 1891.
Oh, okay.
So that's where it is.
And they were your aunts.
They were my great aunts.
Oh, your great aunts.
Yeah, my aunts from Miss Lillian and Addie Heriot.
Oh, I see. And that's right.
Yeah, and they're the ones that took over from Aunt Dora and Aunt Aggie. And I have letters telling about the lawyers when they had all the trouble about Melrose Inn and were trying to sell it and all. And it said how it had been valued and everything. Well, And daughter died, and Aunt Aggie wanted, so she couldn't run it. And my aunts and uncles felt it was terrible to have it to go out of the family, that they wanted to see if they could keep it. So Aunt Lillian and Addie and Uncle Willie bought Melrose Inn for $15,000. It had 33 bedrooms.
Oh my goodness.
I think it had 4 bathrooms.
Yeah.
And it had a main dining room and a children's dining room. The children never went in the main dining room to eat with
Oh,
the
how wonderful. That's great.
Mothers used to say that when they came up. And we kept it then. We had it for a number of years. I forgot how many because I forgot the dates on all those. But then they started evaluating it because Uncle Willie felt that they had lawyers and they were going to lose it. And it was valued then, and that was in I went in training in 29. That must have been 28, 29, something like that. And it was valued at $40,000.
That would
Then.
That would be like 400,000
yeah.
now. Yes.
And, but we lost it through, all right, unpleasantness. There are those that say we still should have it. But anyhow, then, about a year practically after, we lost it. And these group of people got it. Somebody set fire to it and burned it down.
Did they have it insured?
They had cut it. They'd cut the insurance because Aunt Daughter and Aunt Aggie and Aunt Lillian had big insurance to cover everything. And when it burned, they didn't have money enough to pay all the people that had bonds and gotten it. And I was in training, and I was making rounds. Isn't it strange how things happen? I was making rounds, and it was quiet in the hall, and I said, well, I think everything's quiet and asleep. I'll write Aunt Lillian and Addie a note. Melrose Inn was burning. It was 1 o'clock in the morning.
And it just
somehow
got through to you.
Got through to me, and I wrote them. And Aunt Lillian and Addie said it was an uncanny feeling when they started reading my letter, and said that was the night that Melrose Inn burned. Beatty Hall and a young friend of his were coming home from a date, driving, and they drove up the street where the new Baptist church is. And as they were coming up, they said, I smell smoke, and they turned, and fire was bursting out in different rooms, and they jumped out of the car to go to Dr. Sally, and a man, colored or white, they don't know at that time of night, was running down Gaffney Street, that it is now, towards the depot. But they were so panicked over seeing the fire, neither one of them ran after the man.
Oh, of course not. Well, it was more important really to try and stop the fire if they could. Yeah.
And they said, and when you think back, Aunt Lillian and Addie used to say, funny, don't talk about it.
No.
You must forget it. But every room in those 33 bedrooms had a potty and a slop bucket and a pitcher and a basin and a soap jar and all like a complete set, every room of it.
And probably Royal Worcester or Royal Crown Derby, one of those things. Mother gave away my great aunts that they had them in every room in the house, though they had a bathroom or 2 bathrooms in Lower when I was a little girl, I remember. But every room still had the wash basin and all, just beautiful.
Beautiful thing. And they had and you see, another thing, it was so old, but every room had matting. Every bedroom had matting. And
that is what I know. I found it in the Whaley house, what was left in the attic. And that's what I don't know whether you saw when I had the exhibit down on the main street of a boarding house room in Saluda.
Yes, I saw that.
I couldn't find the right kind of matting, but I got the straw
matting. I
rug
noticed
and
that.
put it down because
I noticed
thought
that.
it was right.
And so that all they had to do is to drop some matches.
Oh yes, it would go up like.
And I remember the main dining room for the adults had a china closet, a closet in it And that had plates and dishes and butter dishes and all the things that the butler could go and get extra, you know, and have them serve it, or, fill it. That was the stuff where they packed it. And they'd go and get the extra butter dishes and take them out to the kitchen. And
It was such a different way of life.
wasn't it?
Oh,
I
I'm
remember.
so glad I've lived when I have.
I am too. Somebody said, what did you say about breakfast? Oh, wait a minute. Speaking of breakfast. It's called Dining Room and Kitchen. And it belonged to Miss Emma S. Heriot in Charleston, South Carolina. And it was given to Lillian Heriot Sterneau in 1929. And Mrs. Werner, and this is a layer cake by Mrs. Werner. Now,
Have they by any chance put any of the old menus from
Yeah,
in?
that's
Oh,
fine.
good. Wonderful.
one of the doctors found, he said, Sterneau, do you mean to say you ate like this? I said, certainly I did. These are there, but this is it. June the 1st, 1897. Breakfast. Mutton chops, poached eggs, buttered toast, light biscuits, hominy, potatoes, and oatmeal.
Oh, boy.
Dinner. Soup, potatoes, roast beef, and fried chicken. Entrees, let's say. Liver pudding, Irish potatoes, tomato salad, rice, and cornbread.
Oh, how lovely. And this was what was going to be.
This was the menu that they had.
Breakfast and dinner. Now, I wonder, I guess people went out to lunch.
No, they served all 3 meals.
Oh, I see. This dinner was probably
That
a
was
midday dinner.
midday dinner.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then they had supper.
Because
at night.
supper, you see.
Supper was light. That's
Yeah,
right.
See,
of course.
breakfast, dinner, and supper.
Oh, yes.
Now, these are recipes, but I don't think I'm looking shrimp balls.
Oh, that's a good Charleston one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
And this is hominy puffs.
Oh, that
And
sounds good, doesn't
cornbread.
it? And hominy, of course, in Charleston is grits. It's not the lye hominy.
No lye hominy. I was like,
Lye
I don't
hominy,
think there's
now
another.
hominy up here is the big hominy. But in Charleston or Savannah, hominy is grits.
Yeah, it's great. It's definite. I was looking to see if it, but it isn't. But the doctor, I had spoken of it. And one of the girls came in, we sat down to breakfast, and Dr. Wellman came in and sat down to have coffee. One of the girls says, oh, Lord, I'm so tired. It was after breakfast. It was coffee break. And here are all the menus, bills of fare, in the book itself, all these things.
Mm.
Hominy, fruit, rolled, boiled lamb, chops, radishes, French fried potatoes, preserves, and coffee. This was served in April on a Sunday.
And these were from Charleston.
This was Charleston. This was brought from Charleston. And I don't know who it's a Mrs. Grace Townsend. And it's Monarch Book Company, formerly the Miller Company. And I was thinking, no, it didn't have anything now. And let's see.
Let me copy that menu just for the fun of it. Because if I have to go back over the tape and listen to it to get it, that'll take me that much more time. Do you still have that, oh, is this?
No, this is just
That's from the book,
advertisement.
yeah, right.
What do you
But
want?
that breakfast and dinner menu,
Oh, sure.
I'll copy it and then, okay. I don't think there are any menus in the thing of the Melrose Inn.
I don't think so.
June 1st, 1897. I'm going to turn this off now.
And she had to educate and take care of the 5 children in Charleston. So she decided that she better try something. So she went to Somerville, South
Yes.
Carolina, and started a boarding house. Then she got that, but she went back to Charleston for a while, and then she went to Savannah, Georgia, and started one in Savannah, and had one for a few years.
Oh, well, they probably knew the Osbornes there then, because
Yes, I expect
Hank's
they
father had, when he had been in practice for 75 years, when they finally quit making him pay for a license in the city of Savannah, this was when he was in his 90s, and he still practiced a few more years after that, after his 75th year in practice.
And she did it, and then she went back to Charleston and lived. She was getting older, and she had a home then, and then her family took care of her children. They were grown then, and they were able to take care of
This was
my grandmother.
Your grandmother, right.
The one that was born in Europe.
Oh.
And that was painted in France.
How did she happen to be born in Europe?
She was a hermit when she was a little girl. My great-grandmother was Irish and married Ensign Christopher Herbert in the Queen's
Royal Navy.
Royal Navy, and he was killed and buried in Preston, England.
Oh.
And my grandmother and my great-grandmother, her mother, soon after that met Captain Stewart, John Stewart. And he had a boat and ships. And he fell in love with the lovely Mrs. Herbert and married her.
Oh, wonderful.
And gave his name to little Emma Herbert. So she became Emma Herbert Stewart. And another story that must be emphasized because it shows us that we must keep every bit of paper connected to a family. When some Stewart died in England, they were tracing family of Stewarts who were to inherit some of the estate. They came to Charleston and traced my grandmother and went to see her.
Wonderful.
And they went through the papers, but apparently there was no official adoption papers to show that she was adopted by Captain Stewart.
Oh.
So she could not inherit anything.
Oh, too bad.
That's one of his ships.
Oh, lovely. Just lovely.
And he had his own ship and a number of his own. And he traveled a great deal and was quite a man.
And he was from Charleston.
No, Captain Stewart.
He was from England.
He was from England and came and lived in Brooklyn, New York, and had a home.
Oh.
And they came and docked in Charleston one year in 1860-something. And my grandmother came down the gangplank. And over on the other street, two young men were watching her. And one of the young men said, "That is the loveliest girl I have ever met, ever seen." And his friend said, "Yes, she is a beauty." He said, "I'm going to meet her and marry her." And his friend said, "You're crazy, John Heriot." He said, "Where do we go meet her?" "We will meet her at the ball tomorrow night."
Oh, what a wonderful story. Wouldn't it make a great novel?
He met Emma Herbert Stewart and fell in love with her and married her and had 8 children.
Oh, marvelous. Oh, that's great.
Before that, he had married. And he married Elenita Booth, who lived in Cuba.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Heavenly picture.
Now, she was Spanish.
Oh, yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Not Cuban, but Spanish.
Yeah.
Definitely. No.
Her father and mother came to Cuba, and he was whatever they were. I forgot. I have the letters all in Spanish, so I can't read them all.
Oh, I can read them.
You don't mean it.
Sure.
Oh, we've got to get together. Oh, my
when
Lord.
you come back to
Yeah.
Philadelphia. I'm not that good, but I do know Spanish.
So she and her father, her mother and father came. And they had a daughter. No, this was in Cuba.
In Cuba. Oh.
They had a daughter who married John Booth.
Not John Wilkes Booth.
No, another Booth. He was from Charleston. I think he's gone to Cuba to live. He married this girl's mother. And they had the one daughter. And I have a letter from her father to my great-grandfather saying, I want my grandchild born American. I don't even care if she is born, if it is born on a ship going to Charleston, but I want her to be an American. He didn't want the child to be born in Cuba. Well, Roger Heriot begged, yeah, and said that he wanted his daughter educated in the United States, and would he look after her when she came. So this cousin wrote and said, send along my two daughters go. And they went to Limestone College.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So, Emma and Aggie Heriot, that had Melrose Inn, went to school with Elenita Booth from Cuba. Oh. They took her home one Christmas, and she fell in love with their brother, John Heriot.
Oh, and that's
where Elenita Booth became Elenita Heriot.
Did they have any children?
One died at childbirth, and Elenita died too.
Oh.
And then a few years after, he met the other beautiful foreigner. Yep. One from England and one from Cuba.
Now that is not a good portrait. I mean,
It had to be done
fascinating
over.
because
It had to be done over. It was split.
it's fascinating because, but it isn't
you
pretty
see-
because you can
you
see.
see-
Oh, in the light, right? Yes, it looks better when you get it
You
in the
see-
right light.
see,
Oh, yeah.
see-
They've done something terrible to her nose.
Yeah, you see, I had to have it done over, and it was cracked
Yeah.
because due to being over the fireplace, you know,
Yes, it
the
would
heat from the
mess it up,
fireplace
yes.
cracked it.
Oh, that's too bad.
And so but I think that's gorgeous.
Oh, I think that is darling.
Absolutely.
It's miniature, isn't it? It's a painting, or it looks like
Well,
it's a
somebody
photograph.
said, Aunt Lillian said there was some tale about they thought she did a self-portrait of herself on glass. Now, I
That
have
looks
never-
like a photograph, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly like a photograph.
She must have been wonderful. She did.
She was
But
very...
that was earlier than, or was it earlier than photographs? Could it have been a daguerreotype or something?
Maybe it was a daguerreotype.
Could have been. It was-
Now, the pictures that I sent,
Now, who is this?
that is an unknown picture that was sent from Charleston that was at Melrose Inn. And at first we thought it was a Heriot. But then my aunt says they didn't think so. And I had it appraised, and the man came from the Mint Museum in Charlotte and said that it was an unusual thing, not that it was a very fine painting, but the fact that it was a early American painting painted on an English canvas.
I don't suppose it could be a Thea, so.
I know, we don't know. Now, he had taken it down, and you see, it
Oh,
tells
yes,
it from,
he might.
yeah, it's all
For
that.
heaven's sake.
But he said, now, Mrs. Sterneau, I'm almost sure that it's got cracks in it. It's way back yonder,
Must
because
be.
he says it's early American.
Oh, yes, it definitely is. It's sort of a primitive. It's not unlike the Thea's paintings, though, in Charleston. And he was an ancestor of Hanks.
Was he?
Yes.
Well, I said this was for sale, and I said, well, can I get a lot for it? No. He said, if you want $100 for it, you might get it. Or
Seems
a
to
little
me it's
bit.
worth more than that.
And I said, well, he said, but hold on to it, because the day may come when somebody does want something like on it.
Yes, right.
And so those
She
are
is ugly. I mean,
yes, yeah, you know that.
She
And
looks as though
that's
she
what I
has-
Lillian and I daddy said she must be a Harriet because she's not a bit pretty. Lord,
But she
Robert.
does have those lovely big eyes, but other
Yeah.
than that,
Now
she's-
this is a painting by a Harriet. Louisa Harriet did this in 17 something. It's in Paris. It's in it's the German. It's the Rhine.
Oh, yes, one of the
And it's on
castles
wood.
on the right.
And,
That's fascinating.
isn't it fascinating?
She was over doing the grand tour or something.
We don't know. She's a painter. That other painting is of her. And
Here, let me read it.
after I got it, and so that there's but that's the only one I have. Now I have a very fine painting. I mean a photograph that was a. I don't know whether this one's the one that was or not. Does that look like something special?
Yeah, it does, but I don't know what.
I can't remember what it is.
That is funny, my brother had
See if
exactly
that's the
like
one.
this.
I think that's it.
Well, anybody, the two of us were
Now
going
that-
to a couple
now
of
that-
tours. Yes. George Heriot, painter of the
Yeah,
Canada.
Metz
right?
Now, this one, there was a showing of Harriet's paintings and all in Canada, and they wanted pictures. Now, I do not have one of George Heriot that they wrote about, and I sent the picture to one of the other paintings, and they wanted it because it was only one of the few paintings that isn't by Indians. All his paintings and photographs were like that. And I came along and wrote and told them, but people afterwards, the ones from Canada, the other ones from Canada were very upset because they said I should have gotten more than $200. And I said, well, it was so little, I didn't think, and I wanted to, sell.
Yeah.
So here it is. This is the one I had.
Oh, yes.
And it's Trembling, 1850 he did it. Watercolor and graphic. And my name is connected with this as a donator.
Oh,
This kid, I thought, my Lord, that's something. But anyhow, I had to send that. They paid for it, being sent and brought back, because they wanted it as one of George Heriot's ancestors.
Was.
And they had the showing of the painting all through 1978. Yeah, 78, 79, 80, 81. Yeah, it's about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And so that I thought that I don't have any more, and they asked. But the one in Canada, the professor, flew in from Canada and came and spent the night with me from Queen's University in Ontario. And Queen's University. And he spent the night, and he was looking through the Heriot papers. And he said, Mrs. Sterneau, I have never seen such a complete history of a family.
Wonderful.
My uncle had it. It's from 17-something.
Well, now tell
All
me.
from Charleston and all, because of course we don't have to. We have letters now. I have some of the cutest letters from Europe to the Harriots in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was from Roger writing to John. Said, I'm so sorry that the Heriots had to give up Heriot House at Haddington, Scotland. But then money is scarce, and they just had to let it go. They have restored that Heriot House in Scotland, and I'm going back to see it.
Oh, good.
Hattie's-
When are you going?
Well, I have to save some more money. I don't know.
Oh. Well, I'm trying to think.
Borrowed.
Now, that's Heriot.
Heriot.
Because I'm going to turn this up. I want this.
I mean, from the house.
Well, I want this, if I may have this one, to go in
And
with,
here
I'm going to
is-
put it inside the Melrose Inn booklet.
Well, this
so
I
that
don't
it'll
want.
be
I
in
want
there.
that put in the silver. I got that. That doesn't belong.
Where is the Melrose Inn thing? I've got it in here because I'm so afraid
Now
I'm
be
gonna
sure
lose
to take
something.
these, darling. Well, these are all right. These can be kept. You
Oh,
can
wonderful. Oh,
keep
thank you.
these.
Thank you
because-
so much. And
me
here's
put this back
Melrose Inn, I
down.
believe. Now, that's another
And
one.
I think you've got this picture of Melrose things.
I think that, I think Charlene, oh, no, I don't think she has. Maybe she does.
Let me put this one.
This is the recipe for, oh, this is silver in use in January. Now, is this at Melrose Inn in 63? January 1st, 1963. Hold on. I'm going to write Lillian on these again, and I don't want to steal your pen, but this good bright blue will be good because
Yeah, that's,
so that I'll know who it belongs to, and then we can.
Lord, Philip Hillary, Bonnie Hillary, Kenny Hillary, Vance Kenny, Frank Harrison, my Lord, Mrs. Bushnell, I don't know that, Eunice Sauna. You remember the Saunas?
I don't remember them. Hank's father talked about Mr. Saunders.
Miss Harriet on March the 9th, Miss Harriet got something off. Mackenzie.
I'm not sure whether they just signed this as a visitor's place or whether they, visitor's book, or whether they took the books out at that time.
Oh, yeah,
Maybe this is just a visitor's book, really.
Miss Jeannie Thompson. Oh, could she have told you things? Frances Leonard. That's Frances Stroop. Just Lily Brock. My Lord, Lily.
Now, who is Lily Brock?
I don't know. I don't know which one is Lily. Mrs. John T. No, Mr. John T. Coates. Mr. Arthur Wilcox.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Well, that has to be. When?
March the 16th, he got something out. Mrs. Gerardo, she was a teacher. She taught me, she tried to teach me voice, but she didn't do it. Yeah, I know a lot of these. Okay, now what do you want to know?
I'm not quite sure now. Let me stop.
Kirk.
That was when she. Yeah, Gertrude told me that. Come on, I stayed in. Now let's see. Some of the summer people. I've got to go on and do that. I thought I'd ask Virginia about a lot of the summer people because she would be more likely to know about them. I think I know you know about them
no,
too,
but you
I'd
see,
like
I was always.
You lived in Saluda.
I lived in Saluda.
And there's always been a difference.
Yeah. And I went to all the parties at Melrose Inn. You see, they'd have the parties and the dances and the bridge parties and all. And then
you knew all the summer people.
So I knew all the summer people too, because a lot of them were friends of the family from Charleston and
sure.
Columbia.
Right.
So see, you all kind of, yes, to me, Charlotte. Wait a minute, I was looking for.
Here's something about the.
Mrs. Rivers from James Island.
Here's something about the Saluda Volunteer Fire Department. Do you remember when that started, or thereabouts?
No, we had it when Melrose Inn burned. We had
So
it
it must have been.
And we had it when Charles Hotel burned. We had it when the Osceola burned. When the what was the one down?
Mountain House.
No, this was right down here beyond Melrose Inn, down that street, Gaffney. Iona Lodge. That's an old one. And
well, Edith was telling me about her mother's boarding house that burned down there on the main street. That had already burned though before.
oh yes,
you
that
came.
had, yeah. Here's Mrs. William Johnson and Mary Dale Johnson, Mary Brooks Johnson from Jacksonville, Florida. Now, Mary Dale Johnson comes up here. You know her.
Do I? I probably do. I'm so bad about names, just the way I couldn't remember.
Well, okay then. You should get Mary Dale Johnson to talk to you, because she was back, you see, this was way back then. She was coming up before I came up, or about the time, because her father, in 1927, yeah, I was here. I'd already graduated in life then. Mrs. William H. Johnson's husband was an Episcopal minister.
Oh, did he come up with clergy
And
houses?
they came up, no, they had a place somewhere along here they rented. I forgot now where they lived. And they made the first time come up to the clergy house. But Mary Dale comes up every year. And Lord, Mrs. H.C. Capers, Miss Emily Tiley, these are places that stayed on
Now that
Melrose Inn.
Capers-
Mrs. Capers is a relative of the Heriot family.
Well, I know some of the Capers that Frank Capers in. There are a lot of them in Augusta that
Yeah.
have moved from Charleston originally.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so Mary Dale will no doubt have a lot to be able to tell you about it. How is Virginia? Is she's clear? Her
Most of the time, she's clear as a veil. I think that now that she has this gal that's living in our backyard and going over to help her, she is so much better than she was when she was just sitting. This gal gets her out. Yesterday we were at the Andrews. We went over for drinks, and she had taken Virginia for a ride and said, let's get out. And Virginia said, I'd love to see the Andrews. And she said, well, let's get out. And she got her out. She's good, strong.
who's with her now?
Her name is, well, let me turn the, remember
And
it.
I said, Dr. O'Sean, you said there was someone from Saluda that I might take. He said, yes, a one shot. And I said, who? He said, I think it's Wanshire. I said, I never heard of the name. And he said, well, they had to put him in Ward C because we didn't have any room for him. He said, you better go. I said, Dr. Lucine, he said. So I got to the door and looked in, and he said, hello. I said, well, Mr. Walker, what are you doing here? And then I realized that's what
That they didn't know how to pronounce the name.
Dr. Bocine was talking about. So when I went to the desk, I said, Dr. Bocine, the name is Walker. He said, what? I said, Walker. And he looked and he said, W-A-U-C-H-O-P. Where do you get Walker? I said, I don't know, but I've lived with the name, so I know who it is. And that's it. And a lot of those
Walker,
names.
yes,
Walker,
I've heard
you see,
it.
but they- And when I
It's
saw
like
it,
Halbert. I
remember.
didn't realize that it was Holbert. Halbert, I thought it was H-A-U-B-E-R-T at first, and then I realized that
Yeah.
Halbert Covert.
And another cute story about Saluda is the gentleman is still alive. It's Charlene's brother-in-law, Mr. Carl Pace. He's one of the 29.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Carl went down and to see Dr. Bocine. And Dr. Bocine was there and said, well, let me write a few notes down, Mr. Pace, about you so that I'll have it on my list, on my papers, when you come to the office. Mr. Carl Pace, who's your father? Mr. and Mrs. Bud Pace. And he said, well, how many children are the brothers? He said, 29, doctor. And he said, Mr. Pace, I wanted to know how many children your father and mother had. And he said, well, that's right, sir, 29. Mr. Carl had told me this. He said that the expression on the doctor's face was just startled, and he said, Mr. Pace, you can't mean that. He said, yes, sir, my father had 29 children, and I'm one of the first. He said, I'm among the first wives' children. And he said, but he had 3 wives. Dr. Bocine said, well, that helps.
Okay. Stay down. Okay, tell me about the mountaineer coming up on the train.
An old mountaineer was coming up towards twilight, riding up on the train. And the conductor asked him where he was getting off, and he said, top of the mountain. So when they pulled up to the top of the mountain, he got off, he stepped off and looked out into the darkness, and he said, Sal, you there? He was calling his daughter, whose name was Sally.
Oh, and that's how they said it.
And so it is called Saluda. Saluda.
Oh.
South Carolina, at that time, came up and asked my aunt about a washerwoman. And she said, well, and Lily said, well, Mrs. Metcalf will be able to do some of the laundry. I know she does it. See, I'm not putting the first name.
Mm-hmm.
And Lillian will show you where she lives. So we went out. And while we were walking out, the girl said, Margaret said, why, I thought this was the Pace house. I said, no, this is Mrs. Metcalf's house. Well, we got up there, and as everyone knows, you don't walk up to a mountain house
With that, halloo.
hollering and saying, hi, hello. And I called Mrs. Metcalf, but nobody answered. Margaret called Miss Peggy called Miss Pace, Miss Metcalf, and she came out. Well, I realized it must have been Miss Metcalf, and I said, Miss Metcalf, I'm not sure. I called you, that's all right, child. I was a Pace and a Metcalf, and then I was a Pace. It don't make no difference.
I love that.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Mr. and Ms. Wilson came with their three
Three
boys.
boys.
I didn't get that on.
Okay. They had a house, oh Lord, I forgot where they live now,
But it doesn't
out in the
matter.
country. The boys went to school. They were big, husky boys, and they were rather bad, very bad. One day, one of them brought knives to school, and knives were not allowed to be brought into school. This, I then must have been in the 7th, 8th grade. And Mr. Hollister, the professor at the seminary, said, Bill, I'm going to call it because I'm not sure which child, I want that knife. And he says, I'm not giving it away. I'm going to keep it. And Mr. Hollister said, everybody in class was scared to death because they knew that he would use his knife, even though he was a student. Mr. Hollister kept walking up towards him, and he said, you give me the knife, or you leave the classroom. And Bill Wilson said, I'm leaving the classroom, and I'm going to tell my father about you. Later on, we found that Mr. Wilson had come home, and his wife told him about it, and he gave his son, quite a beating.
I bet.
And he had to apologize to Mr. Hollister. Melrose Inn had lots of doctors, and
That came and stayed there?
and they'd have parties. They started with bridge parties, and they'd play bridge for the evening, and then they'd have maybe a party special, and they'd have games, and one of the games where people would come dressed to represent different books.
Oh, good.
And one year, a lady came all dressed up, Mrs. Bushnell, and she walked around, and everybody tried to figure it, and they couldn't possibly figure it. And I believe Miss Heriot caught it, but she didn't say, because after all, she was one of the ones who were running Melrose Inn,
yes.
and she wouldn't say it. And at last, Mrs. Bushnell, they gave up, and Mrs. Bushnell had come as the heroine of Harriet's Folly, a novel.
That's great.
Then they gave, they were parties of bridge and dancing and games. Not any formal thing, not very formal, but mostly that sort. And they'd get together in the evening and have bridge and talk and reminisce about the mountains and the different places.
I was just wondering what people did, the summer people,
Yes,
what they did
They
here.
played games, and on Friday night, or mostly Friday night, maybe Saturday, they went to Julia F. Gillette Memorial Library to the square dances.
Oh, that was when they had
Yeah.
dances there. Yes.
Then they would come to the different inns and play bridge or play cards.
Did they
and
have
give
croquet?
different parties and croquet. Now, Miss Wilcox, I think, had croquet, and also, I know that Melrose Inn had it at what time, because I remember seeing the set of it, and I had played it at Melrose Inn. But I don't know how many of the others had it. But I think Miss Wilcox had it, and I think,
Well, it doesn't
The one
matter.
that-
I'm going to say sort of in general that they
Yeah,
did play
those are
croquet because you wonder what people did.
yeah, and they would have...
Everybody says, what do
Dr.
you
Smith.
do in
Yeah,
Saluda?
and then Dr. Smith would give parties out at his place at Lake Lanier. Lake
Summit, right.
And we'd go up there and have cookouts and talk and go out in the boat and have a grand time.
Did they invite all the people from the seminar and that sort of
yeah,
thing?
all the
to go out
seminar
there?
and different things
That's
like
what
that.
I thought I remembered.
And you were invited. And for some years, I worked as a helper in the nursery at Sponberg Baby Hospital. Then when I finished nursing and came home, I was in charge of the clinic.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so I would go to the parties, and Dr. Smith would give square dances up at Smith Hill, and we all went up to there and had such wonderful times.
Was that in the little,
The roundhouse.
Little roundhouse,
Or bigger, no, yeah, maybe it was roundhouse or one of the other, where they had the lectures. Yeah, where they had the lectures. That was in the big building.
oh, and that's gone now.
Huh?
That's gone now? The big building is, or is it?
No,
No, it still is. It
I think it's still there. Yeah.
could be.
I was wanting to see
They
places and things around Saluda and Tryon and the beautiful things. In
These were the doctor's wives.
These are the doctors' wives.
And Mary
While the
Virginia.
doctors were in the seminar.
Now, how did Mary Virginia happen to come? Do you know?
Her
I was
mother and
hoping
father
she'd-
came. Her mother and father came up here and built the rock house. The home up there.
And she's been here for a lot of years.
Oh yeah, she was there. I think it was built. They were coming up when we came up because she used to come to some of the parties at Melrose Inn, the bridge. But anyhow, or her sister. She had sisters and two brothers. I think they built that house after.
I
we
think she
came
said
up.
it was built in the early 30s, maybe.
Yes,
She's telling me.
and one of the things I remembered, it was thinking that the Coens must have had a lot of money because it cost $10,000 to build that house.
Oh my goodness. Well, that was a lot